Welcome to The Passion Pod with your host, Chris Johnson. Thanks for joining us. Now sit back, relax, and enjoy the feature presentation.
Welcome back, friends. Today we're in Los Angeles, Marina Del Rey to be specifically, to chat with a creative director in the music industry who has a pretty unique story, to say the least. Being on the forefront of an evolving industry such as social media and content creation, our guest today has built an incredible career for himself, lived a life most can only dream of. He's worked with music icons including Papa Roatch, the Struts, Steve Aoki, 3 Days Grace, and the list goes on and on and on. Welcome to the show. Bryson, do you pronounce your last name Shaddix?
So that's my brother's last name. My last name's Roatch.
It is Roatch.
It is.
Oh my God. Okay, well, what's the story then? Because your brother's the singer of Papa Roatch. Was that like the original, your original last name with your family, and that's where the name Papa Roatch came from?
So my brother that you're referring to, Jacoby, is my stepbrother, half brother. What's it called? Half brother when you have different parents.
Yeah.
So yeah, when I was born, he was in my life since he was 12. So he's my brother. But yeah, my dad kind of raised my brother and both of my brothers, Trevor and Jacoby. And, the band was named after my grandfather. So my dad's dad, Grandpa Roatch.
Oh.
So kind of like, long story short, Jacoby's father kind of was a Vietnam vet, kind of wasn't ever around. My dad raised him. So the story is that my grandfather on my dad's side, his last name was Roatch. My grandfather on my mom's side, we called him Papa. My grandfather on my mom's side, he was a big band's jazz player that toured, right? And then my grandfather on my dad's side, Grandpa Roatch, was a violinist and lived to like 103 and could play like anything on the violin. So the band just kind of, was smoking some weed, and they're like, our parents, dude, they're Grandpa Roaches, Papa Roatch. I don't know. That's kind of the story they tell anyhow.
Yeah, I was wondering about it. I was at this festival and I was talking to my buddy, and he's like, oh, who are you going to be interviewing or whatever? And I was like, yeah, the creative director for Papa Roatch, his brothers, whatever. And he's like, oh, what's his name? And I was like, oh, Bryson Roatch. And he goes, wait, really? Like, that's actually his last name? And then I was questioning it. Then I was like, well, wait funny. A second. Maybe not.
No, it's funny because people think I'm like a tool. Like, oh, he calls himself Bryson Roatch online because of the band. And it's truly my last name, you know what I mean? And I got it tattooed on me up here for my grandfather. But I felt that, and I've heard that before where they're like, really, that's your last name? Like, or you just trying to be cool online? It's my last name.
Yeah, I was just curious. When he said that, it made me question it, and I was like, oh, well, okay, well, then what's his brother's last name? And so I saw that, and I was like, is that his last name? I don't know. Well, I'm glad we figured it out. Speaking of your tattoos really quick, who does a lot of your tattoos? Do you have a go-to guy?
There's this guy in my hometown that did like one of them.
Okay.
I think it was this one.
Yeah.
The rest is this guy named Trevor Tonneson. I've had him in a music video for this Papa Roatch video, Born for Greatness, which Wheels was also in. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've seen him in that. But he was an extra in it, just got to be there. It was such a cool shoot. We shot all these like people with disabilities in the music video, like doing rad shit. So I had a girl that like, not to go off on the tattoos, but I'll tell you real quick.
Sure, yeah.
I had a girl that did aerialism with no legs. I had Wheels in a wheelchair doing backflips, and I had a break dancer with one leg doing breakdance moves and crazy Who's in a Vegas Cirque du Soleil show that Michael Jackson won. Anyways, Trevor, the tattoo guy, was in that video as an extra, and since then he had the best, funnest experience, and he's like, I'll give you tattoos for life. So he lives in San Diego, and he just honestly tats me up for free now, and I can't turn that down.
Yeah, you know I mean that's an awesome deal. Where did the idea come from for that music video? We can go down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, we can go down a million rabbit holes. Let's go.
But trying to find a unique idea for a music video these days is like impossible. So where did you come up with the idea? Was it your idea for having people with disabilities, and why specifically?
Born for Greatness, the original idea was like, let's have this performance video with just people that are rad doing rad shit.
Yeah.
Then a friend of mine who's kind of been a creative director alongside Papa Roatch on a next level. He's kind of like overseas. He does like Rihanna and Kanye, and he's done all these people, and he's been in our team kind of. He's all, dude, that's 2 on the mark. Do something that's a little fucked up and weird. And I was like, well, what about people with disabilities? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And that's it was just him challenging me to take it to another level. And then that's when I dove into like I started researching all these people, you know, and I had known the girl that does aerialism with no legs, which her story is fucking insane.
Yeah.
If we went down that rabbit hole, she's got a crazy story which would make you almost cry. But yeah, that's how it all came about. I just
How'd you find the right people then? Did you just like talk to her? And
I talked to her and
people?
she was down. And then Wheels, I had watched Nitro like Circus and all that like stuff on MTV, and I think he'd been in there sometimes. And I just reached out to him. And who's gonna say no? Like who's gonna say no to be a part of such a cool concept with a cool band? You know,
sure. Yeah,
everybody was kind of down. And I can't believe I got a guy from like Cirque du Soleil to come out and do his thing.
How do you get a hold of? Do you just DM people?
I just DM'd them. You know, you'd be surprised these days.
Yeah.
Like, you know the drill. Like, I don't really like to go through managers on anything, and people are more accepting to just collab these days than ever.
Yeah.
So I just do a lot of DMing and messaging, and I had to pay these people because they're pros at what they do.
Sure, yeah.
But they were
well,
all
and if you're
down.
making a product such as a music video, that the intent is to make money in one way or another from the product, then of course, like they should get paid
For
as
sure.
well, right?
Yeah, they're doing. It's what they do.
Yeah, but I mean, DMing, like I've said it before on the show quite a few times, a lot of the people that I get a hold of is exclusively through DMing. It's either DMing or somebody, connected me because I interviewed this person. But I've DM'd a lot of people just out of the blue that I surprisingly ended up connecting with and then became friends.
Yeah.
People are really open to it for sure.
Dope.
So usually ask right at the beginning. So now we all kind of have a general idea, but who are you and what are you passionate about? Yeah,
I mean, gosh, I'm Bryson Roatch. I'm passionate about, I like to travel. I like people. This photography thing was always a tool to get me to travel and to get me to people. And it just kind of spiraled when I got started at where I am now. Passionate about family. I'm passionate about inspiring people. My passions are always changing. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I right now I'm still passionate about my career though. Like I do like it. It's changing always. And sometimes especially in the last few years with the pandemic, you're like, what the hell's going on? What am I going to do? And there's been a lot of pivoting and stuff, but yeah, I'm passionate about people, man. Like that's the root of it. You know what I mean? And like connecting with people, and music has always been something deeply rooted in me from my brother. And I've seen how much of an impact it's made on people, how much it's saved their lives, and how much it's like their anchor. And I'm not going to be a musician, but I was always like, how do I get involved with this thing of, in a way, our art, skateboarding, fucking all this is saving lives. It's like, so
it's
it's
giving
like
people purpose, man. Like that's what it really comes down to. Is when you talk to somebody who does something they care about, that's what gives them purpose in their life. And when you talk to somebody about something they're passionate about and you get them going, you can see that fire like light up.
Yeah.
It's about connecting with people over the right things. If you're on like a regular work trip working for like some corporation, you go to this meeting, whatever, you're having fun drinking with the boys, like talking about whatever, or with your other employees or with whoever, you're finding and meeting people, but you're not talking about work, or you're just kind of like blowing off steam doing whatever. When you're connecting with people over things that you both care about, that's when all of a sudden it's like, man, I love meeting people.
And it brings people together.
Right.
In a world of division, like art and sports and these things, like it's the only thing that people find common ground. And I just love that I'm in that space and I can do that instead of being at home and watching the news. And I don't know.
It's talked about in skateboarding a lot how there's no demographic, right? It can be like any age group and any religion or any financial status, and it's like kind of irrelevant because what you're connecting on, those things don't matter. It's the same way with music or a lot of different creative things. So where can people go find your stuff? Because you've done like a million music videos and whatnot. What's the best way for them to go see some of your work and then follow what you do and reach out if they had further questions?
I mean, obviously if you type my name in YouTube, you'll find kind of my name tied to videos that I've directed. Obviously my Instagram, Bryson Roatch, I always post what I'm working on. Right now, the main thing I'm doing is TikTok. That's kind of the pivot in the last few months. So, my name's kind of hidden sometimes though, like I don't get, people aren't crediting like they used to. And that used to be a thing, like you'd credit people. But yeah, I mean, it's just, follow me online and follow the journey. I'm always working with different artists like every month, literally.
Is crediting a huge issue that a lot of people in your type of position are like facing? Does it affect the career much?
I like it not because I want to get noticed or I want followers. I like it because I know a manager or a record label person or somebody could see my name,
Right.
and more opportunities come. I just want it's my resume.
Yeah.
You know, so it's not really like I need more followers, I need to be known. I just want the right people to see me.
Well, and I think it's just only fair. I think a lot of people, it's like out of sight, out of mind. And I don't know why some people think it's like uncool or something to tag the other people involved, but they're not the only one creating this thing. So I think it's only really right. The other person has put in energy into this, and it doesn't cost money to tag them when they did the work for it. And a lot of people are wondering who did it anyways. So it just makes sense to put it in.
Well, it's hard too, like now, because with this TikTok stuff I'm doing, it's kind of silly, not reusable. What's the word? Content that just disappears. What would be the word? Like disposable.
Yeah.
It's very disposable, and it's just very kind of silly and whatever. But a lot of this stuff is like there's crazy ideas going behind it. You know, it's not like just like content. A few years ago was fly on the wall. It was just following an artist around and letting them do you. Now it's very, you know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
And what is people going to do? Like, this idea was by Bryson. You know what I mean?
Right, yeah.
It's all iPhone shit now. It's not like that I want credit because it's not the coolest piece of content ever.
Sure. Well, but I mean, it's different. It has to do with your career, right? Like crediting before, like you watch a movie and every single role that somebody had within the film making of that film, their name is listed for what exactly they do, down to like who did this particular costume or whatever.
Sure.
Like all that stuff is credited, and it just should be. So when you're talking about things like TikTok, I think like some people in the general public may not think of anything of it because the production value is not there. But that's not really the point of that platform anyways, right? You're not getting paid for production value. You're getting paid for like the ideas. How do we get this to pop off for people to want to relate to it or for whatever. I wanted to know, the reason I know you is because of Santino Campanelli that I interviewed before, who's like one of my favorite guests forever. I told you off mic the tree of connections that came initially from Wayne Hoffman that led to him, that led to you. What you told me you met him like 10 years ago. So what's the story behind him?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't say there's the craziest story ever, but I was touring back in the day, and I believe his band was opening up for Papa Roatch. And
Scarlett Carson. That's
Scarlett Carson.
It just clicked. Sorry.
And we just, you connect with people sometimes, and he was this super like outgoing, nice guy. And throughout the years through social media, you just kind of check in because you like that person. And then he ended up moving to LA like a few years ago, and I've been out here, and he recently was like, a year and a half ago was like, dude, let's start hanging out. And so he's been inviting me over to his house and been going to dinners with him, and just kind of giving me that community. He's been giving me that community that LA doesn't offer you. Yeah. And that's kind of cool in this area. Like, he's just been a homie to like, come over to the house, come have dinner, come to my birthday. And he's been recently really working at trying to be cool and be friends and connect, and I appreciate it. And that's kind of where we're at.
Yeah, one of my favorite things about him is after I interviewed him, we came down the elevator at the hotel that I was staying at and recording out of, and we're walking towards the lobby. We're done with the interview. He has no real reason to like even really talk to anyone at this point. We already did the thing, but he's just hanging out being cool. We're walking out, and this family with like, I don't know, 3-4 kids, this mom and dad with all their, stuff, whatever. They're like going towards the elevator. We're all the way down the hall, and he sees them, and he stops, and he walks all the way back. And I just like look at him like, what are you doing? And he walks all the way back to hold the elevator for him while they walk down the entire hallway.
Yeah.
Which was like totally not necessary, but he went that far out of his way just to be kind to these people that he have no idea who he is, that he'll never see again.
Yeah.
And that type of thing was like, damn, okay, I like this guy.
Yeah.
Like that I appreciate so much. And people just there's not very many people out there like that.
Yeah.
And so when you see genuine people like that, it's like, I gotta keep this guy around.
Well, dude, being nice is like awesome. Like, it feels good to be nice.
Of course, yeah, totally.
So I love that shit. I think it's also that Italian background he comes from. He's very family oriented, and like his roots are like family and love, and so yeah, he's a great guy. Yeah,
he's the best. So I want to know about, and we don't need to talk about your brother a whole lot, but how much older is he than you? Because I'm trying to picture like, he was like still is, but like a superstar when I was a kid, right? And I don't know, how old are you?
Yeah, how old am I now?
Yeah,
I'm 34.
Okay, so you're about my age.
He's about 12 years older than me.
Okay, so when he like first hit like major stardom, when all of a sudden it really popped off, were you in the same house? How old were you?
Yeah.
What was that
I was
like?
12.
Okay.
He blew up when I was 12, and it kind of just happened. He was very famous in Vacaville, the small town we were from. Like, he was the shit already. Like, the whole thing, new metal, like the genre.
Sure.
I was watching that like be created before the world even saw it. Like Papa Roach had Incubus opening up for them in our small little town, like two bands down. Like they were nothing at that time.
What state was this? Where?
Vacaville, which is between San Francisco and Sacramento. It's
Okay,
like a
it's
little
California,
town, like a little tiny town.
Sure.
But that's where that culture, and it was kind of happening all within the Bay Area, and there it was happening. But yeah, they were already kind of popping off. And then, you know, overnight, pretty much that song Last Resort blew them up. And it was kind of crazy because, like, when that happened, they were on Warped Tour.
Yeah.
And Warped Tour, they were on the small stage and playing in front of like 50 people. And then they, the song came out that week on the radio, and it just took like wildfire. They went from like 50 people to the main stage before Eminem and like Green Day. And so it was a crazy moment, man. I mean, they, you know, you're a child and you're experiencing that. And like, you know, I wasn't living, like people that live in LA are used to that and kind of whatever. But when you're there, it was pretty mind blowing. And it's been still going on my whole life. I mean, he's had a career for 20 plus years and up and down. And right now, arguably, they're kind of on the up again and being talked about and relevant. And I work with them now full time. You know what I mean? Like I work with them and I'm full time on their what do you call it, staff or whatever.
Sure.
But it all started when I was 12, and I've still been involved since.
Did the family dynamic change pretty drastically then? Because you must have been touring like literally everywhere. Were you in school, all your friends asking about it all the time type of a situation?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely became an identity crisis for you, for a human being, right? Like,
yeah, because like, you know, everyone wants to ask about your brother.
Yeah, it was like, it's still to this day, I'm Jacoby's little brother.
Sure.
You know what I mean? And same with my parents, Jacoby's parents, you know? And so, yeah, it was a pretty much, you know, your whole life, you're just like, girls are attracted to you for maybe the wrong reasons. So you're getting, you know, maybe girls for the wrong reasons, but you like to believe it's for real.
Or
and
friends in general.
Friends and just everybody's always curious about it your whole life. And so it used to like, it was awesome. I used it to my advantage to like make friends, to be fair.
Sure.
Like I would be like, yeah, my brother's in Papa Roach. And, you know, I would drop that a lot. Just because it was cool. And as I got older, it was like, fuck, like I'm Bryson.
Right.
It took me a long time to honestly, like 5 to 6 years ago is when I became like Bryson.
Oh, okay. So
like it took a long time.
through middle school, high school, then did you actually like, was that the type of music then you listened to all the time? Or were you super into
I was heavily influenced. I mean, when I was a kid, I was listening to R&B because my parents were listening to like Sade and Tony Braxton, but because of my brother, I was Limp Bizkit was my shit, you know.
Sure.
Korn, Deftones, System of a Down. I was heavily influenced by that growing up a kid. You know, I was an angsty, angry kid too. So like Break Stuff by Limp Bizkit was my anthem, you know?
Yeah. Where'd you put your creative energy? Because I mean,
when I was
any creative is always doing creative stuff.
Yeah, I wouldn't say I was very creative as a young kid. Like I was a bowler. Never did much sports. I never did much creativity. It was like where it all started for me was like the flip video. Do you remember those flip videos? It had like a USB. It was like square.
Okay, yeah.
And that's when like the content thing. And I was probably like 20.
So
no, I was probably like
high
18.
School, you didn't do you didn't play music. You said you were
I was
bowling?
in band a little bit. Like I never stuck with anything.
Oh, okay.
Major ADD, major like couldn't focus, and I just don't recall like having like a really creative.
Sure.
I thought I'll be honest, like I kind of thought I was just by default going to be a rock star.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean? Like till I was like 19, I was like, yeah, I'm gonna be a fucking rock star. Like this is what you do. I was so like thought that.
Right.
And then I realized, like, holy shit, I don't even play an instrument. I don't even sing. Like, I don't even really want to do this at a certain age.
Yeah, of course.
And then, I started developing the camera or, this liking for a camera, just filming my life. But the whole, like career thing started, like, very natural. Like, my brother gave me an opportunity to be involved in the industry, but I was a VIP coordinator. And this was, like, basically I would get all these fans to come meet the band and they pay and coordinate this whole experience.
Sure.
Well, at that time, there was Facebook only with no pictures, no video. You could just post text.
Right.
Well, while I was out there, all of a sudden they allowed pictures out of nowhere on Facebook. And I was like, you guys, we could fucking post pictures of what the fuck is going on here. This is like groundbreaking. Like, yeah, there was MySpace, but like Facebook was like just a whole new level because it was like constant. MySpace was like almost a website kind of vibe.
Yeah.
But this was like constant shit was coming in. We were moving so fast out there on the road with things going on. And so it was like, that's where it all started, like so natural. And the VIP company gave me a little point and shoot, and that's what I started with, this little shitty camera. And, you know, it is where I'm at now with the whole thing. But yeah, it started from a very, you know, simple opportunity. And then I was like, holy shit, this camera is taking me around the world.
Yeah.
Like this, just taking pictures simply.
Right. You were just at the forefront of something that was evolving incredibly fast that had never existed before. Before, if you wanted to be a tour photographer or something, you need to have credentials and all these types of things. As Facebook evolved, all of a sudden, the production value, just like it's continuously kind of gone to be like more candid. And yeah, there's production value in different things, but at the time, Facebook, I mean, we're generally the same age, right? So it's like when Facebook really hit, that's when social media all of a sudden was like a significant part of life. Not just something that you had. You know, MySpace, like bands would have or creators would have or whatever, but Facebook now everybody had. So being able to have the candid photos and stuff backstage, bands didn't have that before. So it was kind of just the timing for that was about as impeccable as it could have been. What drew you to even go on that, like to be working with them at all? Was it just like you didn't really have anything going on? And he's like, hey, I'm going to go on a tour.
I mean,
travel,
I think before I had this opportunity, I was like I worked at like Hard Rock Cafe as a host.
Oh, sure.
You know what I mean? I think that's what it was. And then I did dabble a little bit of that. And then I wasn't actually, my brother in his band fired me at one point at the beginning. Like I wasn't mature enough, and like there's etiquette on the road.
Yeah, of course.
Like, and I was just this like young little kid, like fucking off really. And so they fired me. I ended up moving to Austin for 3 years because I took a startup job. And, you know, did that whole thing for 3 years, loved every minute of it in Austin, but I ended up quitting.
Was that like video stuff or what kind of stuff?
It was like, it was actually a crazy concept. It was called Be Somebody. And the founder worked at Procter & Gamble, like a huge company. And then he worked at GoPro, and he was a CEO, like not a CEO, but a high up guy at both places. So he started the startup. And the app was basically to connect you with people based on your passion, but you could pay and learn from them. So it's like you could find a UFC fighter in your town or a yoga person or a painter and pay them to learn them. Just like kind of what Airbnb does now with the experiences. Have you seen that?
Yeah. Yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, so you can like, it was brilliant concept. Yeah. And I ended up, you know, moving there for that, and it just didn't work out. It didn't work out at the end, but great concept, and, you know, left there. And I hit my brother back up. He was kind of always like, I was always curious about the industry, and he was always down to help me, you know, and I never wanted a handout. I mean, he literally fired me, but I called him back after 3 years. I was like, bro, I've grown up. Like, I'm ready to try this again, you know, but content was starting to become a thing. Cause the first time I did the VIP meet and greets, and then, you know, Facebook was really popping by then. They were allowing video, I think, at this point. And I was like, let me come back. Let me try again, you know? And that was like in 2014.
Oh, okay.
And so he's like, sure. And I got back out there, and then kind of ever since then, I've been full-time working for myself, not just for Papa Roatch, but several bands now. Yeah. And, you know, it's been just developing ever since, man. It's been Facebook, it's been Instagram, it's been directing music videos. It's, you know, if the one thing I pride myself in, and I'm so proud of Papa Roatch, and I try to instill in a lot of other bands, is just moving with the thing and not dwelling on how things changing all the time. How, and in my world specifically, how content's always pivoting and moving and what's cool. And right now we're on iPhones, and all my other friends are using their nice cameras still, pissed off that they have to use an iPhone. I flew to freaking Nashville this week with Gavin DeGraw. He's an artist, been around for a long time. I literally only came out there with my iPhone. And I have nice ass cameras, you know? Yeah. But it's just where we're at.
Yeah. Well, I mean, times are changing. You have to evolve to, you know, with those changes. I've said it a bunch of times on the show. I'll point you to it because it's such a good one. I interviewed Andrew Cannon on the show. He's the brand manager for Santa Cruz Skateboards, and he does announcing for X Games and lots of stuff. But I asked him about like the evolving thing with the industry of like, now it's not about ads and videos, it's people's social medias and all this other stuff, and talking about challenges with it. And he basically was like, you can look at it as a challenge or you can look at it as an opportunity. It just depends on how you look at it. If you were saying, well, I wish it was the way it used to be, the problem is if things hadn't changed, everybody else, there's already masters of all these things, and you're going to be so far behind. You'll never be able to catch up and be the premier person. However, like if you look at it as an opportunity, nobody knows what this new challenge is. No one knows how to handle it. Therefore, if you try to tackle it right away, you can be one of the head and lead people, one of the best people in that industry as it's going while it grows. So it just kind of depends on how you look at it. It is crazy how social media affects things like that and brings people to light like overnight, like that, viral moments and whatnot. It's just, channels have changed. Before it's like, if you could get on MTV, if you could get your music video on there at all, it was going to be overnight. Everyone was going to see that or whatever. Now it's social media, so literally anybody can potentially do that. And that's the big thing about staying on the forefront of stuff. And like, you can be all pissed off about how things are changing and this thing's going crazy and it didn't even cost any money to be made and it's blah, 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 blah. But at the same time, like, you have the same opportunities as them, and arguably even more so because you're around all these people. So I think any of the bands and stuff that are super resisting, you're kind of just hurting yourself, really, if you're not taking those opportunities. So then how did things evolve from there? You did some like photos and stuff, but did you like ever take much for courses or anything? Like, are you all self-taught with all the...
self-taught. Self-taught. I guess when you said, I was like, what were you a creative towards? And as a kid, I wasn't until I found this stuff. And I don't know. Again, I saw where it took me. I saw how it was, and I reading comments of people saying, "Wow, this music video or this piece of content helped me so much." So I just dove in, dude. I started watching YouTube videos, you know what I mean, and I started kind of educating myself. I've always educated myself on every part of this. So it started off with photos, and then when video came, I noticed that kind of like video was starting to rule. So I taught myself video, and I just started filming things. And I've never really had fear of things like. I'm not even a music video director. Like, I wouldn't even consider myself like I know anything on how to, like, what an f-stop is or anything. I turn knobs and I fucking make it look how I like it.
Sure.
Like, I'm so uneducated at this shit, but I just do it and kind of delusionally, like, do these things. Like, when I got $80,000 for a music video, that's happened a few times. I'm like, honestly, like, I'm not worthy of this, but I'm gonna fucking make it happen. And I'll have a 30-person crew, and I'm like, just do it. Like, I just do it, you know what I mean? So everything I've ever done, I just kind of dive in. And I don't know if I'm answering your question. Did I fucking...
Yeah, no, I mean, that it's just like all self-taught. But the biggest thing I think anyways is like the creativity behind it. You know what I mean? Having something original. I don't know, like the execution matters.
Yeah.
It certainly matters. But like you can... you know what I mean? The creative idea behind it, I think, is the bigger picture.
That's my passion, if I'm being honest in the whole thing. I love coming up with ideas and executing them. And I think that's why I am successful in who I am, is I not only have ideas, but I execute. You know what I mean? Like, anything I ever do, like, it can be scary at times, and I'll just do it. Like, last week in Nashville, I shot this guy, Gavin DeGraw, and it's like, I had this idea of just, like, rolling around town doing, like, dares.
Sure.
Like that fans are asking him to do,
Yeah.
And one of the fans asked, like, will you go walk into a random bar and play a song for random fans? So we just went and did it at like 11:30 p.m. at night. It's just like, who would go do that act at 11:30 p.m. at night and like go execute it?
Sure.
And it's like, I just love doing that kind of crazy stuff. Or one time I shot a music video for Papa Roatch in a castle in Luxembourg, and it's like, and it was $0 budget, but it was sick. And I had like, I hit up this, I was like, I couldn't speak, they speak German there.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how, so I had to hit up a fan, and I was like, hey, I want to get this, can you help me find a castle? And I had this German fan write out a whole thing in German to find all these castles. And like this fan, I found this one castle, and she hit up the guy, and I also wanted dancers in the video. And this guy writes back, and he's like, oh my God, we would love to do this. He's like, my wife actually owns a dancing school. And I got all these dancers to be in it. And, the new local news came out. But it was just like an idea of like, I want to shoot in a castle. And we made it happen in like 3 hours. And then we went and played a show that night. And I'm a love ideas, man. And I love to make them happen. Like, that's my passion.
Can we find that music video?
Of course.
Which one is that one for?
It's called None of the Above.
And you just search that, Papa Roatch, on YouTube and it'll pop up.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, so you're doing the stuff with Facebook and whatever, but none of that is like, at least at the beginning anyways, none of that is like, hey, I have a skill and this is Bryson's work. This is just you doing what, hey, like we can just shoot this stuff. Anyone can do this. At what point did you come into your own as like realizing, hey, what I'm doing is actually really cool. Like I personally am valuable to anybody regardless of this band.
I mean, it's always going in and out. I feel insecure sometimes. Like there's these new kids coming in, killing it.
Yeah.
I feel like, you know, when I transition and pivot to a new thing and leave people behind, those moments I'm like, yeah, I'm fucking not. Like right now I feel like I've pivoted to the TikTok thing and all my peers are not there yet.
Sure.
So right now I'm having that moment of like, I have a lot to execute. It's going to catch up, but that's something I was, I always can pivot and move and then they catch up. And then what's the next thing? Is it the metaverse next? Like, fuck, I'll figure that out.
Sure.
And so like, I'm already aware, like I have the vision that content's going to become like OnlyFans for bands. Like it's going to be paid at some point. So I'm already thinking about like, how am I going to be a partner with bands and make a percentage and like sell their content? And it's not there yet, but it's going to be there.
Well, it's going that way with NFTs and stuff.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. It's NFTs is a little more like beyond the world and understanding. Like middle America doesn't, like people aren't on that.
Sure.
Maybe people in LA and people in New York that are fucking with that, but same concept.
Yeah, but the forefront idea of like, we're going to be selling things that give you access to certain things.
Sure.
In the same way that people would pay money to have backstage passes at a tour, right? People will pay money to have different kind of access for various things in the way you're talking about OnlyFans. But in general, with having extra content and contact with people and being a part of a network, and like I think all that stuff is changing. When was the first time, what was the first opportunity that somebody came to you outside of Papa Roatch that was like, I really like what this guy does for this band, we want to hire you for something?
Well, I don't know when someone came to me the first time, but I know that to get the jobs I've gotten, I've had to reach out a lot. It started off where I would send 100 emails to managers and labels and see if I was kind of cold calling people, email. And so that's how it started off. And, I still kind of do that. But right now it's finally getting to the point where people are coming to me pretty regularly. Mondays are like exciting to me now. Like everybody's in the office. I know that a manager might hit me up this week. But I don't remember the first time like someone hit me up. I've always been kind of reaching out at the beginning and started that way. But
how do you reach out? When you reach out, what are like? How do you send an email? How do you contact them?
I won't give my top secret like hustle on like getting the clients, but I'll tell you that I'll tell you what I do. Like usually I look and see if a new record is coming for an artist. That's usually when there's money to be made.
Okay.
Because they're pushing an album or a song and they've got a budget. So I usually go there and I'll find those bands, also ones I really enjoy. And then, I'll like do research on like trying to find the manager's email or the record label. I'll add them on Instagram so that maybe they might add me back and notice me. And then I'll hit them in the email and I kind of play the psychological game. Like if they see that I added them on Facebook and then they get this email, like maybe it's not as weird. And so I've done that hustle for so long, and that's how I kind of would like get a hold of people. And I'd just search online, and I never really asked people for favors. I feel like I could have asked so many of my industry friends, and even this day, like, hey, I know you know this person, can you just connect it? I always, I don't like that. Sure. I like to do it myself and kind of hustle and grind it out and make the opportunity happen for myself, just the way it is. I just don't like asking for favors.
Yeah, I think it depends on how the favor is asked, whether or not it's truly a favor, right? So the thing is like if you did a really great job for somebody and you know that they found value in it because they would want to hire you again, right? They're like, I love working with this person. Yeah. Then you know that their friends would probably also like, you know what I mean? When they make that connection, then it's not so much.
Well, that's where I'm at right now. Like, and that's me understanding my value and like, I do know that like, okay, if I do good work for a label person and she or he becomes a friend and then like, I'm like, hey, I don't mind asking them to recommend me for someone because I know I'm going to make them look dope too. That's what you're saying. Yeah.
You're right.
So I know like, hell yeah. Like recommend me. I want to make you look like cause everybody, when people connect people, it does give you value too and feel good that you're helping someone, but also you discovered this person. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of people tell me like, you're like a little secret weapon. I want to share you.
Yeah.
Like I want to be the person that helps you and tells people, because like you're a cool little tool in this industry.
Yeah. Well, and I think how you go about the ask is like pretty paramount as well, right? Now, if you say like, hey, I know you know this person, do you think you can connect me? Now you're asking a direct favor of like, I want this exact thing. Versus if you say, hey, this is what I'm doing. I want to do more of these types of things. I want to make more creative music videos, or I want to do this or whatever. Do you have any other or anybody else you work with within your network that you think would find value in what I do, that would be like a good fit? You know?
Are you asking me a question, or?
No, I'm not asking you right now.
Yeah,
but I'm
yeah.
saying like if you go about it that way, saying like, this is what I'm doing, you know that this is what I do. Do you know anybody else that you think this would be a good fit potentially? Then you're not saying I want this exact person for this thing. You're just throwing out there like, hey, what could I do that could potentially bring value to you as well? I think if you come from that type of an angle, it's a pretty different ask, right?
No, it happens, and it just happened recently with Gavin DeGraw. And then the girl at the label, she said she's working with this country artist, Kane Brown, who's like a pretty big pop country guy. And she was just kind of like, your name's in there. I was like, yes, please. Like, please, what do I need to do to like send you some stuff? Like, I would love that. But it was something that she kind of shared with me, and didn't push, but I am pushing a little bit back. Sure. Like, yeah, that's tight. Let's try it. Like, I'm not even a huge country fan, but I just like challenges and trying new things.
Sure. And a lot of times it's not necessarily about specifically the music, right? It's the people involved and the direction of how it all can go. I just covered this music festival back home that's like a bluegrass, Americana, folk type thing. And like, I've never really spent time listening to banjo music for like personal pleasure, but like it was pretty dope talking to banjo players and stuff, and like being back there. It was just a really cool experience, regardless of the fact that like I'm not personally super involved in that type of music.
I think all music is dope, dude, and great, and you can fall in love with it if you're influenced by somebody that educates you on it.
Sure.
Like, I've never really loved punk rock too much, but I worked for a boss one time back in the day that loved it, and he would listen to it in our office all the time, and I was just like, this is tight, it's angry, like it's cool, and like there's such a culture behind it of like skateboarding and sports and, you know, just going against the grain, and you start to learn and you're like, oh, now I get why this shit's dope.
Yeah.
Or whatever, you know, like anything, lifestyle, country. Like, I don't live a country life, but dude, you better believe if I lived in Tennessee and I'm drinking whiskey on the porch with some dudes, and like, I'm gonna get it.
Yeah.
Get into it, you know?
There's a reason people like that stuff, and there's more to it than like the surface. So you were working for your brother in the band, but at some point you wanted to do more than that, right? So what was like one of the first bigger projects you did for somebody else? Can you tell me a story behind it?
I don't know. At this point, I've worked with like 30 different artists.
Sure.
So I don't know. I can tell you that there was a moment in my life where I started to feel like, God, am I only... It was the same identity thing of like, I'm Jacoby's little brother. Well, now I'm only working with Papa Roatch.
Right.
And so that happened about 5 years ago, where I was like, I need to like add to this shit. I need to like get some more clients under my belt, but I need their blessing a little bit because they pay me full time, and I need to make sure that they're okay. You don't want to make a client feel unimportant. Right. And they were like, dude, please, like, go. Just make sure you kick ass for us. And I've had Papa Roatch so dialed in that, like, it's a machine at this point. Mm-hmm. So I'm cool. So, like, the first big one where it became another big client was the Struts.
Okay.
And that was a year of me reaching out to their managers. I reached out. I was like, I love this band. I saw them live. They're just, like, it's, like, crazy. Like, it's like watching Freddie Mercury on stage.
Yeah, sure.
And I reached out, and they finally gave me a chance, you know, and they were like, come out here, you know, like, we'd like to try you. And I went out there, and I've been working them for 2 years now. I worked for them for 2 years. We've kind of taken a year off, but I'm going to probably continue to work with them. I live with the singer now. Like, we're friends, you know, we've developed this thing, but, you know, that's where it kind of branched. Like, Struts was the first, like, and then it felt good to, like, do that. There were people before, but then it just spiraled. I just started working with a lot of other people, and since the TikTok game in the last year, like, it's insane. Like, every month it's like a new artist, and I'm like, it's just so exciting. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, and it gives me value and credibility in a space. Like, working for Papa Roatch for so long, these guys have known me since I was 8.
Right.
Not just my brother. My brother's known me since I was born, but his bandmates, they don't respect me. It's in a weird way. They're like always little brother me.
Yeah. Sure.
And so when I, like, the one that got me, dude, I've just worked with Tom Morello for a bit, which is Rage Against the Machine, which they've, like, are influenced by. Yep. And that was one where I just know that they're, like, deep in the little heart in my heart, they were like, fuck, like, Bry's killing it.
Sure.
You know what I mean? It was such a pivotal, and that just happened in the last year where I was just like, I'm able to go to the guys and just be like, come on, man, like, because I've always been fighting for their approval. Like, I'm their little brother. Like, even though I do dope work, like, new people see it and acknowledge it, like clients. They're like, yeah, we need you. They always, at least they don't say it. You know what I mean?
Sure.
Like, I know they love me, but it's just like we've been involved with each other for so long. You don't get that like approval.
How do you find time to work with other people on other projects when like all these tours and stuff are happening all the time?
Yeah, I mean, I've pivoted, right? I'm not touring as much anymore. That
Right.
takes a lot of time, and I don't think I spent 10 years doing that, and sacrificed friendships, relationships with a girl. Just it's a beautiful experience, but it's quite unhealthy too.
It's hard to have a personal life.
Yeah, like
right?
I just am like, and right now I want a girlfriend. I have one now. I want friends. I want to have barbecues at my house with these people. I
Yeah.
want a fucking dog soon. Like, I want to buy a house, and I'm over that sacrifice. So how I find time now is I do these things called content weekends. And I developed this through the pandemic, where I kind of like you go shoot a bunch of episodes in one day. I go shoot a bunch of content that we drag out for 2 months in 2 days.
Sure.
And so I'm able to kind of bounce around. I can't take on a lot of clients because I have to spend a week writing creative. I have to go shoot it, and then I have to edit it. And that takes about 2 weeks to so I do about 2 clients a month, right?
Sure.
And that's how I balance it out. I could scale it, and that would be dope, but I'm not a scaly kind of guy. Like, I'm comfortable with what I make because I do well, and I don't have to work for anybody too much. I've been working for myself. But that's how I execute it. I just kind of do these little content weeks, don't overwork myself and try to make a ton. I could take on a ton a month and just kill myself, but I really try to balance my relationships with my family, my friends, people, and do just enough. And I've valued myself now, so I don't like, when I'd go on the road, I'd be like working 13-hour days.
Yeah.
And like go make maybe $300 a day, which is pretty dope. But for 13 hours, you're like, fuck.
Right.
And I'm drunk every night, and I'm, just up to no good all the time.
Sure.
And so being home's been nice, and developing this. I'm just so lucky that like content and work and this thing keeps ever flowing, and I'm finding new ways to like have it still fit in my life. Because I thought, like, dude, I'm gonna have to tour forever. Like, I don't know how to make more money doing this.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
being in this industry, and now I've kind of developed this thing, and thank God, like, social media is it's everything. It's like, it's more powerful to have your social media than to have an article in Rolling Stone at this point.
It really,
you know what I mean?
absolutely is,
And
yeah.
so I always explain that, like, this is everything. This is your Rolling Stone. This is where your publicity stunts should be held in this space. And it's just a fucking great space, and I don't think it's going anywhere. It's just going to ever change. But anyways, to answer your question, that's how I, kind of balance my time with bands is these short little stints, and then I drag it out for a long time. And usually I work with a social media manager that they have. Sure. I'm not posting everything. I can't live in that world.
Sure.
It gets fucked up, like with comments and likes, and it gives me anxiety, and I don't like reading. Like, reading all that can just really fuck you up.
The interacting itself on social media is a huge part of being able to grow and reach people and build connections and all that. It's the most time-consuming part, and it's not something that like you can sit there and do forever, especially for multiple clients. But it's cool that you can recognize that, at one point when you're a kid or something, the idea of touring the world is like, this is the dream, this is all I want to
Sure.
do. But at some point when you can accept and say, okay, well, I did that, and maybe that actually isn't what I want forever,
Yeah.
and realize that it's okay for your goals and, your values, or I shouldn't say values, but your goals and dreams and what you want, it's okay for those things to change, right? And so, I've gone through it myself quite a few times too, and like with all these trips out to LA, every single time I come out here, I'm like, I wonder if this will be the last time I come out here. Probably not. But every time I'm like, man, I would really love to just do a lot more of this stuff in my zone.
Sure.
Because Minneapolis is a big metro area,
Sure.
Chicago, Milwaukee. I don't necessarily have to come to LA, but long term, I'm like, man, I would really love to just be in my space. And, I never think about moving out here. I have 2 kids and I have a house and everything. And what I want isn't necessarily to like get major articles and huge things and be all over the place. I want to be able to sustain a family and be able to take weekends off and go camping and do whatever, right? And it's not like a lavish goal that people would be impressed by necessarily to say like that's what you want. But at some point you hit that maturity where you're like, well, this is actually what I want. It's okay that that's what I want. You know? I'm curious. It's hard when you work for other people to like meet their expectations. Like that's kind of tough sometimes. I know I paint a lot. I paint murals and stuff. And when I do commission work, I always tell people like it's just going to be whatever I want to paint, and that just is what it is. Like, because I don't want to try to paint something that you want. That's hard for me to do and
Sure.
have it like meet your expectations. Have you ever had any like big struggles with that, where you get hired for a project and you were working on it and like it just wasn't coming to be what they wanted, but it was what you wanted, kind of a thing?
Couple things. So I've had people like in the touring world, you want that person that's going to be around you. They want you, they expect you to be like their friend, really, you know, like not just a cool creator, but want to be around you all the time. So I've had people not really get along with me and like send me off the tour, like the one I was telling you about before, and it's happened, you know. As far as like not meeting people's expectations, I really like, I try to choose artists that need me.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying? I don't like, and that's why I kind of go in the legacy act space, because they need help. They don't really like care to do content. They need some guidance. And that's where I find I can really be a leader in this space. Because I have tried like going in, I don't want to name names on people really, because it didn't work out great or they didn't expect it. But I have had it happen. And usually it's an artist that's kind of newer. Newer artists are kind of marketers these days. You know what I mean? Naturally, by just...
They have to be.
They have to be.
Yeah.
They don't need me. And so like my brother always told me, go where you're celebrated, not where you're tolerated.
Sure.
And I love that line. And so I'm kind of celebrated in this legacy act space, which is so wild because I'm working with these bands that have sold 50 million records back in the day or 20, you know, and that's just where I can do my good work. And the expectations are like, I'm setting the expectations on how they should run their shit. Like their shit, sometimes they're not doing anything. And I'm like, this is what you should be doing. You guys are dope. Like we got to get you on the forefront again. And so that's kind of how I manage all that.
Where do you look for inspiration for how to stay like ahead of the curve on these things? Are there other creators that are really...
I don't pay attention to creators because that bums me out.
Sure.
When they're killing it, I don't like seeing that.
Sure.
You know, I'm like, fuck, that kid's doing a band I want to do, or he's younger and he's killing it. So my inspiration comes from a lot of different things. Sports is a big one that inspires me as far as how they manage their social media. Like football, baseball, basketball, all of them are so dialed in on their marketing and their strategy. I find a lot of inspiration in that. As far as creativity, Pinterest is a huge one for visual creativity. I will watch a lot of old school music videos and dive down rabbit holes on YouTube late at night. And I'll just trip out on like what people were doing 20 years ago and kind of implement some things in here.
Do you keep like a notebook where you write down all these ideas?
I do. I have, I mean, now for content, I mean, every band I work with, I'm posting several different pieces of content for different bands daily at this point. And I got to be on top of ideas, and everyone's got to have a unique idea to a certain degree. And so I have a whole list of just stupid ideas.
Sure.
Like, you know, I could even read off some of them at this point. Like,
sure.
I'll give them away because some of them are already out. But I do have it in my phone, and those are more just like social media content ideas, or like this one I had this week was from sports, and I thought I'm going to try it this weekend. I talked to the band, Papa Roatch in particular, and I was like, okay, so like every week I watch like UFC or NASCAR or something, right? And it's the biggest thing, like these races or these fights.
Yeah.
And I was like, their social medias are just popping off, like when a knockout happens on UFC and it's 700 comments like in 10 minutes. And I was like, what if like I watched the fight, like this weekend is a huge UFC pay-per-view fight, probably the biggest one of the year. And I was like, what if I just sit there and watch there and rip the video footage from like in their Instagrams and put it on our page, but with like our music and maybe like my brother going like, holy like, like get his reactions like as it's happening, and he's like, fuck, this knockout was nuts, and then use the band's music and hashtag that person that knocked it out in real time. And I just wanted to try that, and I what were we why am I saying this? There's a reason.
No, well, I was asking like, how do you like find ideas, and do you store them all in like a list?
I was telling you that I found this idea from just how sports does things, but yeah, I write down all my ideas. I'm just an idea guy, man. I don't know. It comes from like looking at people on the streets. Like I could walk down Venice and just be like, oh, that fucking is cool. That inspires me. This is a thought. Like if I like
what happens when you get stuck then? When you like are
I like never get stuck. Like my mind is fucking insane, dude. Like like it's my ideas has been my lifesaver. Sure. If I don't come up with ideas, I get caught up in drinking, gambling, just dumb shit, you know? And I constantly try to keep I every day I do a little research on teaching myself something on YouTube, to learn a new skill. What's happening on the algorithms every day. I always try to like write ideas every day. I never have a lack of inspiration. The only time I had a lack of inspiration was during the pandemic. I was pretty depressed.
Yeah.
I was just like, I don't fucking know I think my career's gone.
Sure.
Like I thought since the touring world was gone for 2 years, like we were arguably the entertainment industry was pretty much the most fucked out of any industry.
Absolutely.
And it was like, it was gnarly.
Yeah.
So that was the only time I really had trouble. I'm like, I don't have any ideas or thoughts or where is anything going. I tried everything. I tried live streaming concerts right out of the gate, and landed on TikTok and all that. But
that's it. You got to when things are changing, you're looking for new things, and you always have to start spreading and trying, and then something will hit. You can't expect like the very first thing that you're like, maybe that'll hit. It just doesn't work that way.
Just trust the process.
Right, and look at TikToks or anything else, right? You're not going to expect every single video to go viral. So that's not the point. You have a bunch of ideas, and you're like, okay, well, I think one of these will work. Let's start trying this, that, whatever. And in order to stay ahead of ideas, maybe you'll agree with me, maybe you won't. I think the best way is to never like focus right now, this is exactly the thing. You should just always be trying to come up with ideas, even if it's not necessarily relevant to this exact thing. But when you have ideas, always try to have a backlog of like, I have all these things I want to try at some point. So that way, if I don't have like something fresh that hits me today, I can look and go, okay, well, I have all of these types of ideas, right? So I interviewed the student, Sven Johnson. He's like big on YouTube and stuff. And that's how it is. He just has a huge list in his phone of like, well, these are video ideas I've had, and then every day when it's like time to make one, I've cataloged of all these things. I'll like look them up. And I love his because they're just like stupid. Like he just posted one yesterday where, people always will pull up their phone or whatever, right? And they're talking and they'll say, is it just me or is it blah, or am I thinking blah, 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 or are people nowadays like this, right? Like people do that. And his video is just him going, is it just me? And then it just cut to him like in a field by himself, like looking around.
Right.
Because it's just him. Which
it's so literal, but it's
right,
funny.
Right. But that's where like things have gone, right? Is like that something like that can go viral that took like no amount of time.
Well, it's like just on a side note, like all this content and all this stuff is it's all about emotion and how it connects with people. So if it makes you laugh, makes you cry, makes you relate to it, like that's the shit that goes. So it's like really that when we go back to inspiration or where we get it's just life.
Yeah.
Like that's where the biggest stuff comes from, is just what's going on in people's lives.
How do you get people like these rock stars and stuff that like their image is like so, I don't want to say clean, that's not right, but they're rock stars, like it's that image. It's not a very like relatable image most of the time. How do you get them?
The way I educate them now is like, one, pay attention to what's going on, right? If you look at Halsey, you look at Doja Cat, you look at any of these people, right now what's happening is iPhones are a thing. People are, it's hard, it's no surprise to people now, like everything that we've seen forever is perfect and fake. Yeah. Like the photo shoots, you look so perfect and hot, and the live highlight reel, you look like a fucking rock star. Well, that's not like, people know it's bullshit at this point. There's so much content. So it's like being real and raw and just showing yourself. You're seeing a lot of like I said, Doja Cat, like just in her bed, no makeup, talking on her TikTok. Or Post Malone just put out a music video where he's dancing in front of his pool at his house, and it's like got 100 million views. Like it's like, don't try to look at what's going on. And I educate this to the people, like, don't try to fight it and be perfect, because you actually look stupid now trying to be so perfect. Yeah. And it's about just kind of these like doing the lo-fi real raw thing, because that's what people are connected to right now and what's going on. And it's really just educating these people and showing them they're not on social media all day. Yeah. They got families, a lot of these legacy acts and kids and people and lives. And so I have to go in, and they call me Coach Roatch now. People have said that, right? So it's a lot of education and just showing like, this is what's going on. So I have to be on top. And that's how I kind of make these rock stars and these personas. I'll still give them that content. Like I'll go on tour for a couple days, get that cool stuff. But, it's about getting this kind of other, this side we're talking about. This is raw, real. And it's long story short, it's about educating them and really making them understand.
Well, people like that are already in a position where people are paying attention. So, making themselves relatable is huge, and people really love to see that. But when someone's trying to come up then, like whether it's like as a creative director or photographer, or if it's a musician or whatever for that matter, what steps do you think that they should take then to start to garner some attention? Because you can't really...
Say that again?
Like if somebody's new to it, right, and they want to try to come up, making their first music
An artist
videos or whatever. Either way, like where do you think they should go? Because if it's somebody that's like huge, like Post Malone, he can dance in front of his... Yeah, you do whatever because people want to see that out of him, right? Because they already know him as this like superstar. But somebody who isn't a superstar yet, do you think they have to like create some of the, I don't know, more polished content first? Or is that just not that relevant anymore?
It's like... It's tough because it's ever changing. Just a few years ago, the first recipe when getting in with a band was educating the fans who they were. And so like there was a lot of like kind of documentary stuff and interviews and like talking, and like that's the first part of introducing like a new band is like get to know this person. And that was like 4 years ago. I was doing this band Nothing But Thieves. They're a pretty cool band, and that was like what their labels and people want to do, like, hey, get in there, just do some interviews with this band, kind of some behind the scenes, like let's make people fall in love with them. Well, now it's like TikTok, so people are like creating like online, these you're just creating publicity stunts, really. Like that's how you get noticed. Like maybe it's a kid going on Venice and going up to like a family on the beach and going, can I play this new song for you? Get your reaction. It's kind of just creating these like hidden camera kind of like just...
You almost have to try to go viral in some kind of way.
Yeah, it's all viral,
kind of
I call myself a viral engineer at this point. That's kind of like the name I came up. Well, my friend told me it, and I was like, "That's cool." So I changed my name to it, and that's really what it is. And it does suck though, because I live in this space now where I'm like, I have to go. I'm always trying to go viral every day, and that sucks too. Like you can't just make like a beautiful piece of content with depth anymore because it's so disposable, But that's my suggestion when you answer that or ask me that question. You just to get noticed, in my opinion, on these social things, you just kind of got to do some stunty kind of shit.
And I think having some of that polished stuff, that deeper stuff you were just mentioning, I think there's still certainly a place for it, and I think it still has value. It's just in kind of a different realm, right? If somebody goes and dives deep, or they see the Post Malone video or whatever, and he's dancing around, they're like, I really like him now. And then they want to go look at more stuff. Now that they have interest in this person, they're going to really find value in that other stuff,
that's exactly what it's like. If you have those beautiful like creative art direction for an album artwork and the album art, the flyers and maybe a documentary on YouTube, a little longer form, like that's what that's for. It's for once you capture their attention, go let them dive in and have this world of fucking crazy, beautiful shit. So it's all relevant and great, It's just this social media thing is the forefront of just nonstop.
Yeah.
If you want to dive in, I think we all go down rabbit holes of YouTube and just watch crazy shit and content, and you fall in love with them, and that's what that's for. Like that's how, because if you're not getting a fan lyrically anymore, because that used to make you fall in love with an artist, like the lyrics. Sometimes, like for a long time, like God, you saved my life. This is crazy. Yeah. Now you're falling in love through content and personality, and just like that's a whole different thing you didn't see back in the day.
Yeah, you're a fan of the person just as much or more so than like
lyrics.
What they make.
Wasn't that crazy?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, it changes. So I ask a couple of the same questions on every episode. I don't know if you've listened to any because you're a really busy guy, but one of the ones I always ask, because to me it's like the stories that you get from these are kind of like why we do what we do rather than, money things. It's great to make money, but I always ask people, can you please share a unique story of an experience you had that you're really grateful for, but it only happened because you chose to pursue your passion for like creating in this case?
And no money was involved?
Just not focused on money. Like something, say you got to go to a certain specific place or you had an effect on this person.
Yeah.
Like I watched that music video you did for that fan of Papa Roatch and like featured his whole, like, you know what I'm saying?
I'll tell you, I got one, and this is how I kind of started my career before the music industry. I was shooting videos for charity work. Okay. And I come from a background of like my mother was a very like she worked for CASA and like with kids, foster kids, and she ran a preschool for 17 years out of a house, and just she was very like all about helping people. So I kind of had that natural knack at the beginning, and the very first one I did, which was a pretty unbelievable experience, and I just really did it off of the experience and no money really, was I went and followed ultra runners running across America.
Okay.
These people that run 100 miles at a time.
Sure.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And we started, the first one I did, we started in Chicago, and they ran down Route 66 to Santa Monica here.
Oh my God.
And we did it in like 3 weeks. And that was the first one. It was cool because we would have pacer cars, you know, to be able to like make sure people weren't dying and shit and get to the next place. But we would stop at like inner city schools along the way, and we would hook up with a local like food bank, a dentist, a motivational speaker, and like we would just literally run into the school to an assembly, give the kids a bunch of food, you know, check kids' teeth, and if their teeth were messed up, the top 10 ones would get free dental work. We would get motivational speaker was one of the runners, and he would just drop some like hope on these kids. And that was the first like craziest, like I did that because I wanted, who does that? Like who would even get that experience? I saw like America at like such a slow pace. Like you're just running down the line and you see like crazy animals and people were pulling you over. Are you okay? And that was pretty wild because we were doing a good cause, you know, we were like doing work that was like, and that's like, again, for the people, that's something I forget about, and I'm glad I was like, able to acknowledge it. Like I do this for the people, I do this to connect with fans and help save their life, because that's where this all started really. Like, yeah, it gave me travel, but like this content has been the way to reach people, in my opinion, to help.
Yeah.
I wish I could help more. Like I was the one doing it, but I do it through other artists and through other athletes and people. But one day I hope like there's something I could do that's like direct.
Yeah.
Right now it's indirect.
Sure.
But it's
still,
there.
I mean, it's the being mindful of it is how you can have an impact, right? Like no one person's going to completely change the world, right? But if at least you have that self-awareness of like, okay, well, what am I able to do in each individual moment? Like I mentioned with Santino about just like stopping for that elevator, like, you know what I mean? The parents looked really stressed out, and that probably just put a quick little smile. It was
I
just
got a
something
question
you
for
could
you.
do. What's that?
Do you think that like, because I always think whether people know it or not, we ask about passion or why we do things. Do you think like literally everyone's purpose in life is to like lift others up and help others? Like this is why we're on earth. I just always think like, is it really to do this for you and you? Like what's the root of like why we do what we do in sports? And I know it's probably mental health and it keeps you sane, but like, I wonder, maybe it's just me, but is that, do you think, a common thread?
Yeah, and I don't know, it is a common thread. I don't think that it's always necessarily lift people up specifically in that kind of way, but I think it's having an impact on others because we're social creatures, right? So like some artists create art not necessarily to make people happy, but to make people think about certain topics or certain things, you know what I'm saying? Mm-hmm. So like not all art is, like I said, sunny and rainbows, right? You know, Papa Roatch music isn't necessarily sunny and rainbows, but it has affected a lot of people in ways that they've said, you know, have changed their lives and saved their lives. So yes and no, but I like I said, I think if you don't have some kind of purpose in life, like you have to find some kind of purpose, whether it's like something you're passionate about of that particular creating aspect, or if it's the impact that can have, you know? So like as an example, I'm on the Parks Commission with my city, you know, am I passionate about sitting at meetings, you know, in the bicycle path necessarily in my city? No, but I am passionate about providing things for anyone to use at no cost where families can go get outside and spend time together. I'm passionate about providing those types of opportunities.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So yes, did that answer your question? Kind of.
No, yeah, no. I always was just wondering, like, am I the only one? I thought it was a common thread. Like when you dive deep into really, like when you really dive into the root of it, like, you know, I know a lot of people do like skateboarding to help again with their mental health, or I do this to stay out of trouble. But like, I think it always goes back to people.
Yeah, totally.
It eventually goes back to like people. Like in everything, like the food industry, like when you make food, it's like you're feeding somebody.
Yeah.
You know, you're like, it's this interesting thing. I think it always kind of circles back to like us helping people. I don't know. It's
I'm curious as far as like, and this is kind of random and it's not something we're going to be able to figure out, but introvert versus extroverts feelings on that. Because like skateboarding is one, I can't skateboard by myself really. I have a really difficult time enjoying it. When I'm with other people, you know, we're celebrating what this person just did or pushing them to do that. And then I'm trying to do something and they're celebrating. And it's like the whole everyone's affecting each other in that kind of way, versus like more introverted people that like to just do things totally on their own, what their mindset would be for that.
That's a great question.
Yeah.
I mean, because it's probably totally different. Like, you know, I like my best friend Kenny, he just likes to live the van life and travel around by himself and like chill, and you know, he'll post some things off social media, but I don't think it's for like, that's interesting. Maybe extroverts are for the people, introverts are not.
Yeah, could be. Yeah,
you know, and their purposes.
I'm gonna have to interview a psychologist that gets to that. So another question that I had, I think you learn quickest through mistakes. So what's a story of a mistake you made that taught you something valuable somebody listening might benefit from?
I'll dive into the mental health space a little bit. Wouldn't be a mistake I made. Wouldn't necessarily be a mistake my family made, but you know, when I was a kid, I was diagnosed with bipolar and ADHD and all this stuff, and you know, me and my mother and everybody, we weren't educated enough. Kind of went to medicine, right away, and taking meds, and that to be honest kind of fucked up my life for quite some years and got me really chemically imbalanced. And long story short, I would say now later on in life, these kids that get diagnosed with things, I would say don't do meds. I would say find things that kind of fix that problem, like art, working out, church, you know, like whatever gives you a good feeling and healthy feeling, like focus on that. I don't know, again, it's not a mistake, but it's just something that I would have probably done different if I had the choice.
I think it goes into like Band-Aids versus like looking at the root of problems and how can you start to provide the right nutrients, right? So like whatever the issue is, whether it's mental health or say people, man, I'm waking up, I don't have any energy. Well, what are you putting into your body? Are you like taking enough sunlight? Because that stuff actually matters, you know? It's like, what's the easy thing? Sometimes it's taking a pill, but that could apply to a lot of different things, like Band-Aids to fix problems versus like where's the source of the problem and how can you start to eliminate that problem from existing?
It's hard. I mean, it's so hard. I mean, even to this day, dude, like I drink a lot and I love that relaxing kind of just shut my mind off feeling daily almost at this point. There's probably a deeper rooted thing, a way to fix all that, but I don't think I have the time to fucking heal right now. Like I've been healing my whole life from shit. But yeah, I mean, there's always something deeper and you could really dive deep, and we all have to fix certain things, but it's funny, man. There's constantly, I mean, coffee, dude. You know, coffee literally is like, it makes you think you're awake, but it's actually just it doesn't actually wake you up. It just turns off that thing in your brain that tells you you're awake now. Or you're not awake. Wait, you know?
Yeah, that tells you you're tired.
Yeah, it's like it's a false like thing, and you know, I guess my point on that is like, I don't know what my point is.
Well, I mean, you got to be like, no one's ever going to be perfect, and you need to be kind to yourself and recognize that there's always going to be things that you're doing that aren't 100% the best possible option for you, those around you, or whatever. That's totally okay. Don't like bum yourself out about it, but just be cognizant of it. I think self-awareness is huge with anything. Again, where can people, just because I think we've reached our time limit probably here, but where can people go, again, find your stuff, follow you? I'm sure they got further questions from this because you have stories upon stories, and I'm going to hear them off mic, I'm sure. How could they get a hold of you? I
think the best place that is my Instagram, Bryson Roatch, Bryson, and the last name's Roatch. And that's just if you have any questions about anything, I'm a very open-minded person. Just not too personal with my personal life, relationships with my family, like nephews and girlfriend. But I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. And it, you know, everything else that everything I do with bands, I post on there too. And showcase what I'm doing and stuff. And yeah, that's what's up.
Well, thanks so much for coming on the show.
Thank you for joining us for this episode of The Passion Pod. We hope you enjoyed it as much as we did. We'll see you soon.